One. Hello everyone, my name is Joel Gonzalez. I am a filmmaker producer, also a mentor here at Film Connection, and we're doing a huge event next week, August 10th, and it's called How to Sell Your Movie Before It's Made. I brought in Pejman Partielli, who is a filmmaker, producer, distributor above all, and basically we're going to be teaching you on what it takes to make your film from script to completed product and how to sell that film to distributors like himself who are looking for content. So again, everybody, basically I wanted to put this event together because a lot of the mentees that I get assigned to me always have the same question. Once I make my movie, what do I do with it? Or how do I make a movie that's going to get sold? And again, it really comes down to some basic, there's no easy formula for it, but there are some basic things that you should be keeping in mind when it comes to selling your film. I made my film for less than $2,000. And I got distribution within 6 months of that. And I'm still, 6 years later, still cashing in on that film right now. So I wanted to bring in someone like Pejman, who is the guy who is going to be looking at your film, assessing your film, and deciding whether it has marketability and it should be bought or sold across the world. So Pejman, when it comes to that, is money a huge factor nowadays?
It's a good question. First, I want to thank the Film Connection for allowing this Google Hangout and also for Joel for the Q&A. Money is always a big part of the filmmaking process, but we are all discussing independent productions. And so when you're doing an independent production, money is something that you either have or don't have, but you still make the production nonetheless.
Yeah.
So we do what we do with what we have, and that's the whole point of it. So the point of this seminar is to be as practical as possible and to engage folks like yourself who will be making films. There's two sets of people. There are the folks that are going to be producers for hire, no matter what, and there are the other set of folks that are editors, directors, writers, cinematographers, and you name it. So you ask yourself, okay, look, I'm going to be a producer for hire. I don't care about distribution. Or you say, look, I'm not a producer. I'm going to be whatever else I am, and I certainly don't care about distribution. That's fine. But in our experience, chances are the first few projects that you do, you will not be a producer for hire, or you will not be an editor for hire or anything. You will end up, for the most part, making a production on your own in some capacity. So the trick at that point is, okay, let's think about what are the essential elements that we need to know so that this one or two productions that you do on your own could actually have some life, get distribution somewhere, get placed on a platform somewhere, so you could use them as a calling card and actually make your portfolio look good.
Okay, definitely. And one thing I want to point out that I didn't mention is that this is not going to be one of those boring panel discussions where you have a bunch of guys up there in suits talking about huge financial or jargon and basic back and forth amongst themselves. It's designed for you to come with specific questions about your project, specific questions about what you're thinking of doing, or specific questions about a film you have now and you want honest feedback on what direction to go with. One of the biggest things nowadays is this self-distribution mindset. Well, I can distribute my film myself. What would you say to some people that actually are thinking about that area?
Well, we will discuss that as well. It's not something that we could ignore. You know, the distribution spectrum has changed significantly in the past few years. The way I like to compare it to is just like selling a home. If anybody has ever sold a home or bought a home or knows much about it, what you do is when you have a house for sale, you place it with a realtor, a real estate agent. You know, you don't usually sell it on your own, although you have signs that you see out there that for sale by owner. What's the difference? Well, the thing is that the sales agent or realtor, their job is to sell homes. That's what they do. They know how to market it. They have clients, and they know how to dress up a house and, sell it. That's what we do. So there are instances where 99% of the time going through a distributor helps, and the other 1% or 2 or 5% going at it directly would help. So it's just something that you think about and you look into and you see which one makes more sense.
And again, keep in mind, guys, we all know someone that says, hey, yeah, they made a film and they got it distributed, or they went out and self-distributed their film. But how much did they make on that film? Did that film open up opportunities for them to make more films down the road? Again, my first film made it for less than $2,000. I think probably even less than that. And I got with a distributor that liked the concept. Again, I did it without really knowing what I was doing, but it was a horror film. We had the right elements in there, and the distributor picked it up and he saw the potential in it. And from that opened up opportunities for me to say, I have a distributed film, first time filmmaker, distributed film, made contacts with the distributor, and was able to present myself now as an established producer, which then my career took off from there. So what I really emphasize about this workshop intensive is that you're going to get the insight. You're going to get your questions answered. You could come to the workshop, maybe just kicking around an idea. Well, guess what? I'm going to have other executives, other distributors, other people in development there that will hear you out. Afterwards, we're going to have about a 30-minute mixer afterwards. So come prepared with a quick pitch of your idea. Come with some business cards and really network with the other filmmakers there. The key thing is networking. The key thing is getting your idea out there. Now, you may think to yourself, look, I got $3,000, $5,000, $10,000. I'm going to make this film just to see if I can do it. Well, why not put the right elements in it like I did the first time? And that way your film has a fighting chance. So what would you say to someone like that? First-time filmmakers, never directed anything, and at the point right now they're just developing a concept. I mean, where do they go from there?
Well, I'll take that question and I'll take 2 steps back to answer it. First thing to discuss is you mentioned that we all know folks that have distributed their film on their own, or they say
I've heard of it. I've heard of people that
right,
do it,
and they've made a lot of money or whatnot, which is fine. It's done, but you got to realize that out of that one film, there are so many others that have never seen the light of day, never been distributed. They're just sitting on shelves, and it's just because they were made without having distribution in mind, and it's just in a way they cannot be distributed. That's just the way it is, and that's what we're trying to avoid. Now, in terms of the question of someone who just has an idea or a concept,
like someone who's sitting out there right now is debating, I have a rough script, I never directed anything, should I go to this workshop?
Right, and again, that doesn't differentiate you from most people out there making films. So that shouldn't stop anybody. The concept that I'll be really putting out there at first is for everyone to remember that, like we mentioned, you have the producers for hire, and you have the other folks that are non-producers, right? But what you got to remember is that for those couple of features, chances are that you will be doing a feature on your own, right? And chances are that you're going to be brought into a feature of your friends, colleagues, classmates, and so on as a director, writer, editor, sound design, makeup, whatever it is. Now, when it comes to independent productions, all those departments will have an impact on distribution. Why? Because they will all be production-related issues that you'll be dealing with in those departments.
And those decisions basically affect whether somebody's going to want to pick up your film, and bottom line, right?
Correct.
The lighting's horrible, the sound's horrible, you got your sister to just, take out a bunch of old boxes of clothes and dress everybody in. I mean, every little aspect counts. So if you're not thinking through that, then, you're going to end up with a film that only mom and dad and maybe your friends and family are going to watch. And I know you're not doing this for that. So hopefully you guys will join us next week. Again, it's going to be Wednesday, August 10th at 6:30. Pejman, again, will be taking direct questions from you guys. I have a few other executive friends of mine that are going to be there from different companies. As far as Cinetel Films, we're going to have Plus Entertainment there. We're going to also have someone from Cinedyne Films there as well, just in the audience to meet and greet with you guys afterwards. So, Pejman, another question. So let's say we have, so obviously the workshop intensive is how to sell your movie before it's made. What if there's someone out there listening to this right now that has a film that they made, like I did, that I went out and I put some money into it and I'm sitting on it right now, trying to figure out what to do with it next. Is this something they should come to as well? And what opportunities they have versus someone in development, at the development stage?
Sure. For folks who've already made a feature, coming to a seminar like this will first bring you in direct contact with a few distributors. Those are the folks that will be looking at your feature. Whether you've already been in discussions with distributors or not, it will be additional distributors. And let's say the ones that had taken a look at it before, for some reason, could not distribute it. It will be an issue where maybe you have some discussions of possible edits or adjustments or reshoots, or there's many different ways of doing it. And sometimes I've even been involved in a situation where the film itself did not make sense, but the concept made sense, and you start developing it as a TV series. So you could open other doors.
Okay.
So just because you've made a film doesn't mean that this seminar is not going to be useful. If anything, it could also allow you to think about how to make the decisions in another way for the next film. And also, if you're just coming with projects, the idea would be talking to someone like us who will be distributing your film or other films to see what we're thinking, get in our head a little bit, what we're looking for, and things to keep in mind so that you can incorporate them into your project when you do them.
And you brought up a good point. It's getting into your mind, distributor's mind. So what's the importance of having a relationship? Again, guys, I'm all for go out and do it yourself because I did it myself the first time. But and I have friends that have successfully distributed their films by themselves, doing it the do-it-yourself way. But I know for a fact they haven't profited as much, and then they go right back to the Kickstarter campaign and the Indiegogo campaign to raise those funds. Every film that I've made since that first film, I've had someone else put their money into my film because they saw the track record that I started establishing for myself. So going with that said, again, I lost my train of thought a little bit, but the point I wanted to make was, getting into your guys' mind, and pairing up with a distributor or a sales agent, the importance of that.
Sure, but also one other thing before that is, we mentioned profitability. When it comes to distribution, a lot of times it's not even the issue of profits. It's the first thing is getting the film out there.
Yeah.
Getting the film distributed. Sometimes you come to us, for example, with a film that you just spent way too much on. The budget just was not,
good point.
Was not worth what the production was, right? So as successful as a distributor can be in distributing the film and getting profits for you, you would not be profitable just because you spent too much on the film, right? Or the market has changed. So for us, profitability is one thing, and that's a measure of success. But the first measure of success is, can we get it out there? Can we get it on all the platforms or in all the regions of the world? And that's the first measure of success. And then whatever the money entails, facts are facts. Sales are sales, and everything is valued at a certain rate, and those chips will fall into place. That's how I think we should think about it. And then your question specifically was about
just how important it is to pair up with
the relationship.
But I think you've answered that. It's because again you guide us on thinking, look, if you guys are going to make a horror film, monster in the house or slasher film or whatever, I mean there should be a range in what you're making that for. Because if you're going to go take out mom and dad's retirement and spend $200,000 on a slasher film, I think you would probably advise
at the right time, no, or do something else.
Do something else, right?
And for us, the issue also is that the relationship is, the distributors are the ones that know the market. They know what's selling. They know what's not selling. They know if there's too much of something, like a glut of a certain genre of film, because they're at the forefront. And so you benefit from that relationship in that they could tell you, listen, this is what's going right now. At the end of the day, remember, it's a film business. The film is the creative side, and then the business is the business side. So you cannot really avoid the business aspects. The business aspects are sales, market trends, what's hot, what's not. And within that world, you fit the creative. So that's how they work together. So that's where the relationship comes into play.
It's having that kind of someone to bounce your ideas off of and say, look, I'm thinking of doing, faith films are pretty big right now, but again, it's specific faith films, specific things that have to be in this faith films. Or is there a big surge of faith films and maybe they want to see something different? So again, it's having the ear of someone that can give you the feedback on what you're thinking of doing. And again, I've been able to do the films that I have been able to do just because I have people like Pejman that I can reach out to and say, look, I have these projects I'm developing, I have some financing coming into place, but I obviously want to put it in the right project, and also am I maybe looking at spending too much on this project based on what you think the projections could be on the return for the project? Because at the end of the day, it is about making my investors happy, and I get to do the creative stuff, which is I get to produce movies and make movies. So One other thing that came to mind is, let's give an example of maybe some stuff that you see, or just one or two examples, that, and then we can give them more at the workshop, but of stuff that you see maybe getting overdone, or maybe that's already hit a wall with.
Well, it's always the fact, number one overdone film is your Blair Witch Project type film. Always. And it's hard to say to yourself, no, don't do it, when you have the Blair Witch and you have all the other ones that Paranormal Activity and so on, that just make it super big on such a
that's
tiny,
lightning in a
tiny,
bottle. That's
right,
lightning in a bottle. Yeah.
Tiny budget. But for every one of those, there are a million other folks that tried it and it didn't work.
Yeah.
And what hurts a lot more is when folks try to do the Blair Witch, try to make it look really ultra low to get that look, but they end up spending a lot of money to make it look ultra low, and that's just bad upon bad. So that's, those are one of those things.
I was actually working at Summit Entertainment at the time when Artisan picked that up, and I remember they screened that film for us, and they told us it was a true story, which was not cool, because then I had an hour drive home and I kept looking in the rearview mirror thinking that there was something behind me. But again, you guys, I would say as well, don't, you look at those successes and be inspired by those successes. You know what I mean? I am as well inspired by those successes, but I know that they are not the norm, they're the exception. So again, it's always about coming back and doing the business. Like you said, it's knowing the business, understanding it. You don't have to be your own distributor. You don't have to understand every aspect of finance, but it's having people that you could turn to and say, look, this is what I'm thinking of doing. What do you think? It's having and getting that insight enough so you can kind of maneuver through that world.
And at the end of the day, you could still decide to go against the grain. There's nobody's forcing you to do it one way or another.
A lot of people do that, and I have friends that have been working on films that, 7 years, they've been writing the same script over and over again, and that's okay, because you know what, God bless them, they may actually have the next huge success story, because there are no overnight successes, but I just come from the mindset of, I love creating stuff. I love producing. I love filmmaking. So every project I take on, obviously, I look for the marketability. If it's a unique enough story and I really think, they're wrong, then I'll fight for it. But again, it's still, even at that point, I'm still looking at certain elements. I know that attachments have to be there, and there are certain things have to be in line for it still to have a fighting chance in the market. So I hope you guys are, ready for this workshop. It is an intensive design for you. Come with your questions. Come with something to write on. Come as prepared as possible to get every question you have answered about your project. And this guy and many other people that I have invited to come out are going to be there specifically for you. Guaranteed it's not going to be a boring discussion. So another thing we're going to be talking about there, guys, is ultra low budget, micro budget filmmaking and utilizing the resources around you. And sometimes I know some of you think, well, can I really go out and make a movie for nothing or very little? What would you say to filmmakers or writers that are sitting there thinking?
Right, and it's not just ultra low budget. Anything that's independently made. What I really want you to know and be comfortable with is that you have more resources than you think. Yeah. And it's just a matter of stepping back, thinking about it the right way, asking the right questions, and you'll realize that you have a lot more resources than you think. It's not just money. There are a lot of other ways to bring in resources. Yeah. And then you'll start to feel a little bit more comfortable, and it's just a matter of using those resources correctly for the right project.
That's the key point. And again, we can give you examples. We'll give examples of people that use it incorrectly. Well, not people, we won't name names. But we'll give you examples of films that probably didn't do as well versus films that did do as well. My first film called Followed Home, guys. It's on Amazon Prime. Watch it. You're probably going to hate it. But guess what? I got distribution for it. I get paid for it every quarter. I collect a nice check for it because, hey, I utilized the resources I had. I had an office, I had a cabin in the woods, I had actor friends, and I had a Kia Sorento, and I made a story around that. So, hey, shameless plug for my film. Hopefully my revenue check will be a lot bigger. But let's talk about that, because financing, financing a film is a question I've gotten a lot from people that are thinking about coming to the workshop or have registered for the workshop is, how do you find investors, Joel? What do they want to see? Do you want to touch on that a little bit?
Well, there are different ways of finding finance.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look into how independent films are financed, there are many, many different ways. And the question also here is for you to know that you have more access to financing than you think.
Sure.
And, a simple thing just to think about is when you shoot films in the right budget ranges, tax credits. States with
True.
tax credits.
Very
you go
true.
to the right state, and all of a sudden you have 30%, 25%, sometimes 50% tax credit. That's savings. That's money that comes right back into you. So all of a sudden you have 30 to 50% that you didn't have before, and it was just a matter of asking the right questions, speaking to the right people, and just allowing time and research to get that. And now you have half your budget.
Yeah.
1/3 of your budget.
And we'll talk about that. Again, we'll talk about what the group wants to talk about. It's very intimate setting. So, if a majority of you in the group have already are about to approach financing, we'll talk about a lot more about financing. But doesn't need to say that, if there's a small percentage of you, but again, come prepared with specific questions that relate to your specific situation, and we'll definitely address those. Again, resources, going back, again, I utilized the resources I had, and we were able to monetize on that for the future. So another question that I'm sure we're going to get a lot of is genre. Genre. What's the genre that everybody should be thinking about, maybe that's going to be hot a year from now?
Well, they'll have to come to the seminar for that.
Of course. So I know for a fact, guys, we've looked at the studies, we're looking at the reports. I talk to this guy all the time. I talk to my other contacts all the time. So it's another thing we're going to share with you, and it's not what you think. So definitely.
And it changes.
It changes. It does change. So definitely, plan on joining us next Wednesday, August 10th at 6:30. It's right here at Raleigh Studios in Hollywood. And we're going to share all this information with you. Again, it's all to your benefit, and also for Film Connection as well. Their goal is to get you as much information as possible, to get the right people in front of you as much as possible. And I'm excited that they joined us in this on this intensive, and we're looking forward to doing more and different subjects. So hope to see you next week.
Yep.